Most men misunderstand attraction because they misunderstand power. They think dominance means control. They think confidence means talking louder. They think influence comes from pressure, persistence, or strategy. It doesn't. Real authority is internal. It's emotional stability under tension. It's clarity when someone tests you. It's the ability to remain centered when another person becomes reactive. When we talk about female weaknesses, we're not talking about flaws to exploit. We're talking about predictable human tendencies that show up in social dynamics. If you understand them, you don't manipulate, you position yourself. And if you value serious psychology and long-term personal development, subscribe now, because this channel is about building internal strength, not chasing tactics. The first thing you must understand is that emotional intensity often overrides logic in attraction. Many men try to win arguments with reason. They explain themselves, defend their actions, and debate details. But attraction doesn't operate on courtroom logic. Emotional experience weighs more than intellectual explanation. When a woman feels uncertainty, excitement, or tension, that emotional charge becomes the memory, not the facts. This is why composure matters. If she becomes frustrated and you remain calm, grounded, and measured, you shift the emotional temperature. You become the stabilizing force. Emotional steadiness signals strength. Reactivity signals fragility. The man who controls his nervous system controls the interaction. The second dynamic is the pull toward validation. Like most people, women respond strongly to approval and attention. But here's the difference. When validation is constant, it loses value. When it's earned through genuine behavior, it increases respect. If you compliment everything she says, laugh at every joke, or immediately respond to every message, you communicate dependency. If you acknowledge her thoughtfully but maintain your own pace and standards, you communicate self-sufficiency. Scarcity of attention, when authentic, creates gravity. Not because you're withholding, but because your life has substance beyond the interaction. Another tendency is testing for emotional strength. Tests are rarely conscious, you know. They show up as small challenges, teasing, delayed responses, subtle disagreements, even mild criticism. The purpose is not sabotage, it's assessment. People test what they value. They want to see if your identity collapses under pressure. If she says you're too quiet and you immediately over-explain yourself, you fail the test. If you respond with relaxed confidence, I speak when there's something worth saying, you pass. The key is not clever words. It's emotional non-reactivity. When you don't flinch, you communicate stability. There is also a strong sensitivity to status and social proof. Status is not about money or fame. It's about perceived competence and social positioning. How do others treat you? Do you seem comfortable in your environment? Do you lead conversations naturally, or do you wait for permission? In group settings, a man who speaks calmly, listens attentively, and decides without hesitation draws attention without demanding it. Authority is quiet. If you constantly try to prove yourself, you signal insecurity. But if you behave as though you belong, others follow that assumption. Another pattern is responsiveness to mystery. Oversharing, kills intrigue. When you reveal everything immediately, your history, your struggles, your intentions, you remove tension. Attraction requires discovery, it requires space. Mystery doesn't mean playing games. It means pacing disclosure. In conversation, answer directly, but don't ramble. Share enough to be real, but not so much that there's nothing left to uncover. The man who is centered in himself doesn't rush to explain his entire existence. Emotional volatility is another dynamic worth understanding. When emotions fluctuate rapidly, stability becomes attractive. If she is upset one moment and affectionate the next, your consistency becomes the anchor. If you mirror volatility, the relationship becomes chaotic. In conflict, lower your voice instead of raising it. Slow your movements instead of becoming animated. Ask concise questions instead of launching accusations. Emotional contrast creates polarity. Stability builds respect. There is also a tendency to equate decisiveness with security. Indecision feels unsafe. When a man cannot choose a restaurant, define his schedule, or articulate his boundaries, it signals internal confusion. Decisiveness doesn't mean rigidity. It means clarity. If you say, "Let's meet at 7," instead of, "whenever you're free," you communicate leadership. If plans change, just adjust calmly. Decisiveness combined with flexibility really demonstrates competence. On the other hand, hesitation combined with anxiety, well, that demonstrates weakness. Attention to social comparison is honestly another psychological lever. Women, much like men, notice how they rank socially: appearance, attention, influence. If you openly chase multiple women or, seek constant female approval, you dilute your value. But if you interact respectfully and remain selective, you signal discernment. Selective attention communicates standards. Standards communicate self-respect. And self-respect is honestly contagious. People treat you according to the boundaries you enforce without drama. Another weakness, really, lies in the pull of emotional narratives. Stories shape perception more than, say, isolated actions. If she believes you are reliable, she will interpret mistakes generously. But if she believes you are inconsistent, even small errors confirm that narrative. Consistency builds positive stories. Show up when you say you will. Follow through. Keep your tone steady across days, not just moments. Reliability is not flashy, but it builds deep attraction over time because it reduces uncertainty. There is also a heightened awareness of relational power shifts. If you become overly invested too quickly, the balance tilts. When one person needs the relationship more, leverage shifts. The solution is not detachment, it's abundance in your life. Purpose, work, friendships, fitness, these create emotional independence. When your happiness doesn't depend on her mood, you remain grounded. And grounding is magnetic because it signals that you choose her, not that you require her. Finally, understand that respect precedes love. If boundaries are unclear, attraction erodes. If you tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict, resentment grows silently. When something crosses a line, address it calmly and directly. That doesn't work for me. No anger, no lecture, just clarity. Boundaries enforced without hostility demonstrate self-command. And, self-command is the core of internal dominance. All of these so-called weaknesses are not flaws to exploit. They are human tendencies to understand. When you master your reactions, regulate your emotions, and maintain standards without aggression, you become the stable center in any interaction. The real lesson is this: power is not about overpowering someone else. It is about governing yourself so effectively that others feel it. If you value grounded psychology, long-term self-mastery, and influence built on composure rather than manipulation, subscribe to the Inner Citadel and share this video with someone who understands that true dominance begins within.